So we're going to review a video I found on Agape Boarding School's website real fast because this is not on their YouTube. Nice little overview of their
When I was
campus.
13 years old, my mother passed away. And when that happened, my whole world turned upside down. I'm the oldest of four. My dad was in the military, 24 years retired. And I kind of just turned my back on God. By the time I was 16 years old, I was involved in things that would put me away for 15 to life.
Kind of a rebellious teenager.
So we're going to stop it right there. We're going to talk about Robert Graves real fast. So when I was there, he was not on the sheriff's department. I do not believe. He was night staff, so him and Lobstein were the two night staff. And they were there. It was more than just a 5 days a week thing, and I think they rotated out. So some staff members would take a night shift, but mostly it was him and Lobstein when I was there. And so he was the one that was reading all outgoing mail. So you could write letters to your parents or grandparents or whoever was on an approved list. That was pretty much made by your parents, or if the school didn't want to send something out, they wouldn't send it out. So he would read all of the letters, and if there was something that was negative against the school, or like you were trying to tell your parents about something that happened, and they didn't want your parents to know about it, you would get pulled aside the next morning by Brent Jackson, and you would get punished for writing a letter that was they considered misleading, or lying, but you're telling the truth. You're trying to tell your parents what happened, and they would not let those go out. And I also find it very disturbing that they still have this website on their video. They're still using the fact that he is a sheriff's officer. I believe he has been let go from the sheriff's department because of the allegations and the charges that have been filed against different staff members there. And I don't know if any of the trials have actually come to a conclusion or not, but I'm pretty sure he's no longer with the sheriff's department because of his involvement with a lot of the abuse that has happened at Agape.
They're just south of Seattle in a place called Tacoma, Washington. Um, my parents had it with me. I was doing really good in school. I was in the international orchestra. We'd gone to Russia and played. I came back from that, and my parents had found out some of the things I was been involved with drugs and alcohol. About a month later, my parents got a hold of me and said, "We think we've found some things that can help you," but I didn't really know what that might be. They had told me that they had found some boarding schools.
I was adopted at age 3.
So we're going to stop it again right there, and we're going to talk about Dumar. So Dumar was supposedly the medical officer of the school. So he was in charge of denying people access to medical treatment. There was one time that I got really sick. So what happened is I literally got dehydrated because during work crews, it's not really denying water in quotations because they let you take water breaks, but if you're outside and you're working in 95 to 100 degree temperatures with humidity in southern Missouri, you need water. But they just flat out won't let you take water breaks when you want to have water breaks. And so I just got dehydrated to the point where I passed out, and I told them, I was like, look, I'm sick. I don't know what's wrong with me. And they refused to take me somewhere until I passed out. Dumar was also responsible for restraints, aka gang beatdowns, where 4 or more staff members would literally beat the shit out of a student. They weren't restraints, they were beatdowns.
But I grew up with trouble.
Robert Graves was also one of the staff members that did restraints as well.
A lot. Just couldn't find my way in life. And it didn't really hit me until I got to high school. Living a really unhealthy lifestyle. And my parents tried helping me multiple times, and I just refused. Them screaming, fighting, not being a good son, not being a good big brother. And my parents luckily saw that, and so they decided to send me to a place that could give me the help that they were not able to give me at the time. And so I ended up at Agape Boarding School.
I'd heard about.
So we're going to stop right there. So he was wearing a red shirt. That means he's a captain. That means the staff trust him enough, aka he has extreme Stockholm syndrome, to the point where he's in charge of other students. Um, he's able to hand out minimum punishments like push-ups or just doing like really basic shit for punishments and then escalating it to a staff member if it gets beyond that. Red shirts also a lot of the times would fuck with other students and try to get reactions out of them, so staff members would have to deal with it, and sometimes it would escalate into restraints or aka beatdowns by staff members.
This place before I came here at the last school I was at, but like all rumors that you hear, most of them are not true. After you go through the program and you hit your
Okay, so we see a orange shirt, a yellow shirt, burgundy, and gray. When I was there, gray was designated for students that were done with all their school stuff and either waiting to transition into a junior staff member or waiting to leave. For my last month or two I was there, I was a gray shirt. We also were used for other tasks they didn't trust other students to do. So I ran the trash route with Julio. So Julio would drive a truck and I would run along the side of the road and picking up trash and throwing it in the back of the truck, and then we went and put it in the dumpster. So that was a task that they didn't trust other students to do, but they trusted gray students to do because they didn't think the gray students would run away because they were getting ready to leave anyway.
visit, you realize that you have increased your relation.
But I think it's changed based on that because you have gray shirts sitting with other students. So I think it's different because when I was there, all the gray shirts had their own table where they sat at. Orange are also incoming students, so when you first get there, you get put in an orange shirt. You get given a guide who is a burgundy or maroon shirt. Usually, that person has shown a level of malice towards new students, or has shown that they can handle getting somebody that's new and not used to the environment adapted to the environment. And then once they decide you're good to go and you don't need a guide anymore, they usually put you in a yellow shirt, and then you're still low on the totem pole, but you no longer have a guide. And then eventually you work yourself up to a burgundy shirt. Also, they'll drop burgundy shirts down to yellow shirts as a form of punishment as well.
Relationship from where it had been. You learn to love your parents.
Okay, I see here that gray means something completely different because he's working on a pace right now, so he is not done with the school. So they've changed up the ranking system since I've been there. And also, I don't see any brown shirts either. Brown shirts was a punishment that I don't see, but obviously this is a promotional video. They're not going to show that.
Instead of just seeing them as they're here for me, you learn to see them as their people too.
The Lord started working on my heart before I even got to the school, and just inside.
And then you have somebody there wearing a green shirt. Green shirts are staff members, all staff members. Staff members don't absolutely have to wear a green shirt. They can wear other things, but a green shirt normally says that they're a staff member. And then there's also blue shirts too. Blue shirts are junior staff, so usually a student that is going towards the role of becoming a green shirt. So it's somebody who's done with all their paces, they're done, they have nowhere to go, and they've decided that they're going to stay on. They usually make them a blue shirt for, I want to say, a year, maybe less. It's until they trust them, and then they give them a green shirt. And then those junior staff members, they either live in the dorms with the captains and gray shirts, or they have some other old dormitories that they used to use that they don't use anymore. They'll move them into there too.
I was kind of like, you've been running for me this entire time. Why don't you come back to me and let me have a shot at it now that you've messed everything up? And I felt like that's what I needed to do. And so when I got to Agape, I had already chosen to give up my past and start doing things right. We support the home. We want to build the home. We want to support the parents, and we want to be on the same team.
So they're saying he's now a sheriff, deputy sheriff, and he's the school resource officer. So he was always quote unquote the school resource officer, even before he was actually a deputy sheriff. Also, the sheriffs there, when you had a student that ran away because of the abuse and everything, they got tired of it and they needed to run away, the local sheriff's department would find those students and then just bring them back to the Agape. They wouldn't write a statement. They wouldn't find out what was going on. They wouldn't investigate the school. They would just bring them back and give them back to the school because the school would call it in and say, hey, we're looking for these students. They would just bring them back. The local sheriff's department, in my eyes, is just absolute fucking trash because of what they did. Also, I was transported from Iowa to the school by a Cedar County deputy and his wife. So they also do transports for the schools too. I don't know if it's all of them, but and I don't even remember the name of the deputy that did mine, but you have the sheriff's department or members of the sheriff's department are paid by the school and are very, very pro this school. And I don't know how aware they are of the abuse that goes on there, but I know that they've been given statements by different people and they refuse to investigate it. So the Cedar County, Missouri Sheriff's Department are fucking corrupt.
You know, what's best for your child. So if you're looking for someone just to stick your son somewhere just so you don't have to deal with them, then Agape is not the place.
That is Julio Sandoval. When I mentioned that I did a trash route, that was the staff member. Julio is a staff member that has abused people there. Me personally, I never had a problem with him. He was the wrestling coach. I was on the wrestling team. Also, you have this weird little cliquey thing with the staff members that different staff members have like groups of students that they hang out with and they socialize with.
Even yourself, then what's the point of doing anything? You need to
that if you're cool with that staff member, they just leave you alone. I love how he's talking about accountability, but the school won't be accountable to themselves for the abuse that they've done to children.
Or they suggest you should do something, you should listen to them, take it seriously, and then ultimately you need to be learning to be accountable to God. And when He is saying something, when you're reading His Word, you need to not take that lightly.
Most kids come in here with complete defiance, not only towards parents.
They're using the gym. When I was there, we were not allowed to use the gym at all, even being on a sports team. And it really depended on what sports team you're on. Leo Lenz ran the basketball team when I was there, and once a week the basketball players could go work out. But Frank Burton and Julio ran the wrestling team when I was there, and we were not allowed to work out.
Parents, but towards personal relationships, towards authority, and towards basically anything that's going to step in front of them and say, hey, this needs to change. And at Agape Boarding School, there's 24-hour accountability. Beyond that, the spiritual aspect, from the counseling to the preaching services, is a true thing that changed my life and my heart towards wanting something greater and cleaner in my life.
You know, I'd say to my dad, why are you so upset? Like, you don't need to worry, I can take care of myself. And he would say, well, I am going to worry. I am your dad. Like, asking me not to worry is like asking me not to breathe.
That staff member looked like Stephen Clemenson. That dude was a giant piece of shit.
At the time, but
he would sit on the podium and he would tell students, he's like, your parents don't love you. You're all going to prison when you get out of here. And he would just mentally berate the whole student body at once. Yeah, this school is bad. This school is really, really bad. Do not send your student to this school. It is bad.